What up? It's Mr. X to the Z Exhibit. You're on Conversations with Chad. Tune in right now. You don't want to miss it.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Chad. We're sitting down with multi-platinum rapper, actor, entrepreneur, Xzibit, and Tammy The Cannabis Cutie. So Tammy, tell me about the Lasagna Ganja podcast and how you two linked up to create this endeavor together.
Well, I came up with the original concept for the Lasagna Ganja podcast. And the reason I did that is because we are in the beginning stages of having this plant go into a new transition from where it was to federal legalization to becoming a hopefully descheduled substance that people can now enjoy, and not in shame, or as it comes out into the forefront of everyday life. So there's many layers to this cannabis industry, therefore bringing the metaphor of the lasagna aspect, which we embodied in the name. When I wanted to do the podcast, I didn't want it to have any kind of just guys sitting around smoking, talking about weed. I want it to be very informative. I want people from Wall Street to listen to this podcast for the business aspect of where it's going, the laws that are made about the plant that will affect our everyday life, and the people who have been incarcerated for dealing with cannabis, and then also the culture aspect of it. As being a musician, being able to bring my friends, being able to talk about the way music and the outspoken voices from Willie Nelson all the way to Mike Tyson will be invited to speak on this platform. And then as I was putting the show together, the podcast together, I became a big fan of Tammy. I saw the way she does her social medias, the way she's very outspoken about the plant, very knowledgeable, very articulate about the plant. And so it was like, this is who I want to be my Batman to my Robin, or vice versa, and I think that it really works. It's very organic, and it's very informative, it's funny, and all of the elements of being an entertaining podcast, but yet informative and real, and moving misinformation out of the way is how I decided to make my choice and land on Tammy, and really like bring this together. And I'm very happy with what we've been doing.
Now, obviously, cannabis is the topic, but in this deep dive into cannabis culture, what other subjects or topics are you guys going to be discussing with your guests on the show?
We're going to talk about legislation, history, prohibition, the social history. We'll be talking about its impact in entertainment. Of course, we're going to address music. Hip hop is most known for its association with cannabis, but it goes all the way back to the Black community with jazz and Louis Armstrong, and all of the songs that were made in the jazz scene that are catered to Mary Warner, which was the name that they used for marijuana and cannabis. So we're going to cover all of the layers, and that even includes cannabis chefs.
So piggybacking on Tammy's comment about hip hop music and cannabis going hand in hand, I just interviewed DJ Muggs a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the time that Cypress Hill was performing on Saturday Night Live, and Muggs lit up the joint on live TV, and they subsequently get banned. When you look back at a situation like that, with all the stigma hanging around cannabis and marijuana then, to where now you're seeing weed dispensaries everywhere, Xzibit, you've got your own napalm brand. What are your thoughts when you see where cannabis has come from to now?
It's progress, but we still got a long way to go. There are things that people from entrepreneurial aspects all the way to trying to find something that actually helps them with any kind of issues they're having physically or emotionally, that this plant can help with. So our aspect, my viewpoint, to speak on is I'm very pro cannabis. And so I realized, as being a business owner and operator in cannabis as well, there's a lot of information that doesn't get fed to us because it's all about inclusion. So hopefully the things that I've learned in my experience as an owner operator, and also a person who consumes and enjoys cannabis, I want to be able to bring that information to people who may not know as much as I do, and help them on their journey, whether they looking at this as an investment, or looking at this as something that they want to really understand about what is best for them and how cannabis can influence and help their lives and livelihood. Then this is the place to do that. The Lasagna Ganja podcast is built for the truth and the positive promotion and support of everything and anything culture and cannabis. And so that's my aspect. That's my goal for this podcast. And that's my viewpoint on cannabis, period.
I was gonna say, when it comes to like the destigmatization that we've gotten to today, I want everyone to be clear that we're not out of the woods yet. Back in the 80s, and late 70s, 80s, we did have compassionate use, and there were over 30 states that had some form of compassionate use. And then along came Reagan, and it all disappeared, and then we had to restart again. So even though we've made it this far, we've been here before historically. And I just want to make sure that we're doing the work to, this is where the work really begins. It looks like we're close, but the Supreme Court could take it all away tomorrow if they really wanted to. So we have to make sure that we're doing the work as far as educating people so that they understand, because the propaganda that has been fed to a lot of us since our childhood at schools with the DARE program, and that lion that used to come around and tell us how crack was whack. So correct on the crack thing, but they had it all wrong when it came to weed.
Now, Tammy, tell me a little bit about your history in debunking these myths of cannabis, and how you got into being kind of the cannabis advocate and educator.
The first time I debunked the myth was, I grew up a DARE program alum, and, they used to teach us about these substances, and I absolutely believed them because of my neighborhood and, how bad it was. I was drinking the Kool-Aid until my freshman year. There's a kid on my floor that's always high, smells like a pound, eyes forever low. We're judging. He's the only kid that makes the honor roll. And then I'm on academic probation with the 0.87 GPA. So for that, I was finally like, you know what, let me try this. And when I tried it, it was such an improvement to my life overall, from sleep to feeling more positive and hopeful about life. It was just like mind-blowing. So for me, I just could not shut up about it. I felt like I needed to undo what was done by the DARE program. There was like this justice that I needed to like serve on behalf of like all my fellow millennials who had to go through that. And that's just kind of where it started and how it parlayed into where we are now.
Tammy, what was your biggest challenge in creating your Cannabis Cutie education program?
My biggest challenge has and always will be the social media gods who do not like what I do. In 2022 alone, I was deactivated 8 or 9 times. And it's just been a lot to try to get the messaging out there. It's like, because we're in a new age, there are new ways of suppressing people. And that's through, deleting your accounts, age gating everything on different social media sites. So for me, it's being very creative with SEO and not getting flagged and getting my content completely silenced by the internet gods.
And for those who are unaware, can you please enlighten them as to exactly what Cannabis Cutie is?
The Cannabis Cutie Education is an educational platform to debunk all the myths surrounding cannabis and to teach you the proper information.
Shifting gears slightly, this is a question for Xzibit, but still in the cannabis realm. Was there a particular strand or type of weed that you recall people enjoying on the Up and Smoke tour?
You're motherfucking right. Yeah, we are heavy. Okay, you got to remember, back in the day, it was only 2 types of weed. It was stress and it was chronic. But as things have progressed, there are indicas, sativas. I can honestly say that it was guys that would come around. They would come around on our buses and whatnot, and they were heavy. They had the turkey bags full of just great buds. You know what I'm saying? And it was like every state we went to, these guys would find us. So it was a community within the community for hip hop and cannabis, and it's always been a marriage made in heaven. So I would say I was heavy indica. I'm pretty sure Snoop was the same way, but it was whatever was there was passed around equally, and we had a great time. It was literally the Up and Smoke tour.
One of the many classic tracks from Dre's 2001 is Some LA Ends, which notably starts each verse with lyrics from a different popular West Coast rap song. Why did you select Volume 10's Pistol Grip Pump, and were there any other records that you had in mind?
I love Dino, and I'm glad you picked that up. That was Dre's idea. Dre wanted everybody to start off on that record with a quotable lyric from a popular West Coast record. And so that's why I chose Volume 10. I love Dino. And that record was really huge out here. Pistol Grip Pump on my lap at all times. And when I said that, it just fit. Everybody had their own idea of how they want to start the song. But that was my first thought, and I didn't have any other thoughts after that.
Can you please talk about creating Front to Back and your first reaction to the hydraulics infused instrumental from Rockwilder?
Rockwilder did that track, and it just came together. We were putting together the Restless album, and it was really dope. We had just came off the road. We were finishing up the record, and it was sampled actually from 2001. So the intro for 2001 was me and Trey D, with Dr. Dre actually brought mic cords all the way from, because we were at Encore Records, and the room that we were recording in was all the way in the back. And so he ran mic cords all the way out to the parking lot, and that's a real lowrider that he was hopping in the parking lot, mic'd up. And so that's why we're able to sample that and get it really clean. And so Rockwilder took that and made this amazing track. And as soon as I heard it, I knew it was, the lyrics just came with it, and it was amazing. It was an amazing time in music for myself and everybody in our camp, because we had, this huge audience. And even to this day, those songs have longevity to them. And so I knew that was what I was trying to create, and that's what we did.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite songs from your entire catalog.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Hip hop and rock have a storied history of collaborating, but that was especially apparent with the rise of the nu metal subgenre, something to which you certainly made historical contributions. Looking back on that time now, how important was that to your career?
Going on tour with Papa Roach, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, I'm a big rock fan as well, and so listening to my playlist, you'd be like, what? You know what I'm saying? Peter Gabriel, like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? I got everything on my playlist. And so my music is very aggressive. My delivery is very aggressive. My voice is very gruff and rough. And so it was easy for me to do a transition and do songs on, on rock songs and rock records. I like to try different things. Even the feature I did with Within Temptation was it was a reach, but it is something that I like to try. I like to experiment, because you never know. I like to challenge myself. So, coming up through those times and seeing how big those records were, and how we were able to mix hip hop. The only example we had before that was, Run DMC and Aerosmith was Walk This Way. And so now being able to, be part of the new swing of that, it felt great. I wear that like a badge in my career.
X, I just got one music question for you before I flip it back to talking about cannabis. But I've asked Fredwreck, and I've also asked Kurupt. Can you tell me about, from your side, about making that track, The Hardest Muthafuckaz, with you, Fredwreck, Kurupt, Nate Dogg, MC Ren? Can you tell me about how, you know, your contribution to that record came about?
We were on a really, really dope vibe when we were creating those records. Fredwreck came into his own as a producer. Him and Kurupt were really close. They were making some really dope records together. And I used to live with Fredwreck. Me and Fred shared a house, and it was like fucking Animal House. But that's another story. But it was dope to be able to just go, you know, from you know, my bedroom into a studio he had built in the house, and he was working on this track. And you know, the bass line came on, boom, boom, boom. And so he was like, yo, you got something for this? And it was just simple like that. Like we walk into each other's studio sessions, and you know, it'd be like, yo, you got something for this? You got something for this? And the creative process was free. And so it was dope to be able to be included on that. And of course, I mean, the forefathers, you know, MC Ren, Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, Snoop Dogg, you know what I'm saying? Like these are all the people that I was fans of before I met them. And so, you know, being able to come in and actually be, you know, perceived as one of their peers and be respected with my craft, it was really dope. So I was always down to be part of records that were being created at that time.
So the last question I got for you guys both is, what is your earliest cannabis memory as far as, you know, in your life, it becoming noticeable to you, or you started getting influenced by it, you know, those types of things?
Oh man, I was in high school. I was in my high school parking lot. My homeboy Wally and Richard gave me my first joint, and we smoked it in a green beat up Buick Regal. And I'll never forget. It was really trash weed too. It was pretty much trash. And so then it was like you know, that was the introduction. And then as I matured as an artist, it became a very necessary part of my creative process and my everyday life. So, you know, it's been with me for a long time, and it's played a very important part in my creative process and just my overall well-being.
My first introduction, I first consumed cannabis in college, but I'll never forget being in elementary school. And in my apartment complex, there was a laundry room, and me and kids were running around. And I remember going into the laundry room. It was super smoky, and I'll never forget the smell because it smelled so familiar. And I don't know why 10-year-old Tam had a very familiar smell to this.
Damn, Tammy, damn, you didn't tell me that. You was going in.
That was my first introduction.
You got me beat for sure.
I didn't smoke it. I just smelled it and remember thinking, why do I know this smell? So maybe my mom was consuming in the house when I was little, or my mother. But I'll never forget that smell. And then college, after, you know, getting on academic probation, was my first.
Awesome. Hey, we appreciate you guys coming on. Really looking forward to catching the podcast, and look forward to talking to you guys again in the future.
Yes, first episode drops October 5th. So I can't wait to see you guys. I can't wait to bring this to you guys and enjoy it as much as we enjoy making it.